This is going to be like an entire review of semester one programming. So I'm going to split it up into a few different videos, but this one's just going to get us started on a program that's ultimately going to do pretty much everything we did in semester one. So I'm calling it Array Fun. Not necessarily because it's fun, although it will be, but because it has arrays and functions in it. And I'm assuming that since those are the last two units we hit, we might not have covered it, or maybe it was the end of the year and you had some form of senioritis or whatever the case is. But we'll go through this program. Is going to kind of mimic a teacher's grade book in some respects. So we're going to let the teacher enter a bunch of scores for a bunch of students, and we're going to store that information and print out all of the students' scores and all of the students' names and their average scores. So we're going to start with that. We'll need probably a while loop, I'm guessing. So I came up with, probably need a for loop also. So I came up with this plan for us. So while the student name isn't, literally quit, we're gonna get the student name, store it in an array because later on we're gonna have to call on that. I'm gonna ask how many scores must be entered. I'm gonna read in as many scores as what was specified. We're going to find the average grade for every student, and we're going to store the average grade in an array. That's our goal. It's pretty lofty, so hence the reason I'm splitting this thing up. First thing that we're going to do is talk about how functions can help us. So, I will use, I guess, J-option panes just because I think most of you are pretty familiar with those, and usually that's the thing that students use. So I'll say import Java xSwing.star. And you can see I have this program set up just with a main right now. So I could do things like ask for a name, but remember we're going to store those in an array. So I'm actually going to create a string array, and if you don't remember how to do that, it's just putting those little next to the word string, and we'll call it name, and I'll say equals a new string we'll start out by just making it 5 students long, otherwise it'll take forever to test and debug. You could ask the user ahead of time how many students do you want to enter and use that, but you do need to know for sure how long that array is going to be. So we'll just say this class has 5 students in it. And if I wanted to set up a while loop, I could maybe have a Boolean variable, which I'm going to do because this is a review, and I'll call that keep going. And I'll set that equal to true, assuming that the user wants to keep entering names to begin with. And I'll just say while, you can either say keep going double equals true, or that's a tad bit redundant. You can just say while keep going because that value is either true or false. So while keep going, and then you can say name, and now I'm going to have to start placing these into the array. So I'm going to need some kind of a counter. Integers are counting numbers, so I'm going to create a an integer variable called counter. And that's the thing that's going to help me index through this array. So name counter equals J-option pane, show input dialog, enter the student name. And if you had me for first semester, which chances are you had, I always recommend testing frequently, write a little bit, test it, write a little bit, test it. But right now we're going to get caught in an infinite while loop if we try to do that. So I could say something like if name counter is equal, remember you can't use double equals with strings, so dot equals with strings, quit. Then we have to change the value of keep going to false, because that means they want to quit. So keep going is false. That is how this value of keep going turns false, and we get out of that while loop. Here's where my while loop ends, and then I'll just show a message dialog. And for now, what I'm going to do is I am going to print out the memory location of where that string array is, and then I'll explain why I'm doing that in a second. So first, let's run this, see if I made any errors. It looks like I didn't make any errors, so it says enter the student name, and I can enter a student name. And of course, it says enter the student name again. So I'll enter another student name. And I can keep entering student names all day long, but what's going to happen when I enter the word quit? Quit comes out. So, interesting. We have to talk about why that happened. So first of all, you might want to tell the user here, enter quit if you are done. That's what we call user-friendly. Maybe you want to say, if you don't remember, if you say slash quote, I'm sorry, it has to be slash quote, an actual quotation mark will come out. So now if you run it, enter quit if you are done. So there's just our first installment. That's maybe a lot to take in, maybe it's not. But to get you started, you can watch the next video if you want to see how to take this a little bit further.